blockchain. One is for the developers interested in smart contracts called Blockchain. Another one is about ICOs. What are ICOs? How you should make your ICO and how you want to invest into an ICO. And others more general about blockchain projects and the sustainability and democracy that comes along with these projects. So what's a token? So that's example of tokens. So you have authentication tokens. You probably already heard. I have one maybe. It's the two-factor, what they call two-factor authentication. You have this token that you have to type on your device, or you can have it on your phone with Google Authenticator maybe. You can have it on your phone, and when you have a password, then he asks you for your token number. Tokens can be also vouchers. You have in board games, you have a lot of vouchers as well. It can also be a token coins. So here you have the big logo of Bitcoin in the middle of the screen. And maybe you're familiar with black token. This is a joke. You know what black token is? No. It's from South Park. This guy is called Black Token because it's the fact that in movies or series or show, if you put one black guy, then you get the racial acceptance from the black communities because you have one black guy. So they make a satirical out of this character. Now, why do you want to tokenize? Well, tokenization allows you to have the digitization of a problem. So digitization, it's exactly more or less the same word as digitalization, but for me it expresses a slight different meaning. It's just for me mostly. It's the idea that you transfer a problem into digits, into numbers. It doesn't mean that it's digital, so it doesn't mean it's within the computer or electronic device. You can work with numbers without a computer. Well, everyone has a computer, so it will be digital to some extent anyway. So a token helps greatly to simplify interactions. So when you have token, you can easily say you get that amount of token, I get that amount, and we can monetize interaction, monetize through exchanges. We can monetize interaction. You don't necessarily need blockchain for token. Look at the example of the security token, the authentication token, or voucher or board game. Now, what will be the steps to do it? So the first step I would say is to analyze and understand your ecosystem. It's to try to identify the interaction that matter within your problem, with your the area you're interested to look at. Then you can model these interactions. So you look at who are the participants, what are the participants dealing with, how they interact, what different the evolution of this ecosystem, and third, you can look at gamifying it. So if you want the people use your tokens rather than continue using or interacting the way they do, you need to create an incentive. It can be a monetary incentive, but you put a bias. If you define monetary incentives, you change the interaction itself. You don't model them. If you gamify, you will somehow have interaction with a change or a modification of the interactions, but it's less. It's bring less change in it. So if you gamify, you just find ways that the token people are interested to use the tokens, and throughout the life cycle of the token, it behaves properly. Then, because it's a lot of social interaction, you should experiment. There is no hard science that would describe how humans interact. And when that's done, you should restart all over again. If you look at all the cryptocurrencies community, or I would say all the cryptocurrency experiments, because Bitcoin to some extent is still an experiment, Ethereum, Litecoin, Blochchain, and all the other are the same. When they introduce a new change that we see recently with fork, it's just one step into a long-term process, and there is also it's not a stable platform. So depending on who is coming in, how people interaction evolve, and all the dynamic of the community, all the incentive and all the economic, the modelization of interaction has to change constantly. At the very beginning, Bitcoin was just mean to store value, exactly as gold is. So Bitcoin is mapped exactly on the model of gold. Now there is evolution within Bitcoin for scalability, because right now Bitcoin can only allow, let's say, 100 transactions per second, which is really, really small compared to Visa Mastercard, which processes 100,000 per second. So if you look at Bitcoin, 100 transactions, it doesn't scale when you have millions of users. And right now, with the rise of the price of Bitcoin, you have a lot of users, and they need the scalability for the system to not collapse under its own loads. Because if you can't sell or buy Bitcoin when you want to do it, if it takes few days, then it's better to keep with the bank. At least it takes few days. Well, it's different. It's a different part. It's a bad parallel because it's different interests, different tools. But the idea is that it's a journey. It's a constant journey that you'll have to interact all over again at some point. Similarly, as a central bank is behaving, the economy is always changing. So the central bank must always look at the economy, either print some bills, destroy some money, or play with the rates whatsoever. So the gamification still incent the people to keep the ecosystem safe and sane. So now let's look at the journey of a token. So let's take an example, an ICO. Who knows who doesn't, well, who knows what an ICO is? Okay, most of you knows what an ICO. Let's just for the others tell. So ICO means initial coin offering. So an ICO is the blockchain version of an IPO. So you know what an IPO is? For those who doesn't know what ICO, okay. So it's a blockchain version of an IPO, but an IPO is a regulated event. We go through exchanges. ICO, it's self-regulated. It means that it's the participant of the ICO itself, which regulates the ICO through the use of the blockchain. And it's crowd-based, so it's similar to an IPO, very similar to an IPO, but it's also a crowdfunding, because it's the crowd that uses that funds the project. So if we look at it in respect to what I've said previously, so it's a way to digitize the interaction between investors and a project. So it's allowing investors to invest, to fund the projects, and allows investors to trade between themselves on the value they believe of the project, of what the project is. So basically, they will buy with crypto a token, which is just a number, a piece of code, a few digits that reside on the blockchain, so it's not easily modified. It's modified only by the community and change only when community approve that it can change. Um, yes. So let's try to create our ICO. You have, let's find a name for the ICO. What can be your ICOs?
Syrian.
That's a cool one, but that's not inclusive. I think it's very important. It's about a group, a community. So if you, we say it's Cyril's ICO, it doesn't gamify lots. It will not interest you to own. I'm not gonna sell you the Cyril's tokens. So it needs some easy. Let's say the blockchain startup weekend ICO.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So what are the components of an ICO? So obviously, first and foremost, the definition of a token. It's why you want an ICO and what for you need an ICO. And also very important, it's the regulation, both of your business and of the ICO you want to do. Because there is no regulation, the regulation on blockchain, as I say, it's self-regulation. So it means that the network only applies what it has been told, and that's part of the definition of the token. The regulation on blockchain is part of the definition of the token. But the regulation in the real world, it's what will allow you to withdraw the money from the blockchain into the bank account of your project. So it's a lot of uncertainty right now, but it's include KYC AML. If you don't want any trouble, you do it like any IPO would do it. So with you KYC AML all your customers, all your investors. But the point of blockchain is also to introduce some decentralization into the process. So you may find ways that can be in gray zone of the regulation. Right now, if you sell some shares of your company, it will be regulated. Say it should be fully regulated. But the regulators also said that if it's just a utility token, then there is no need to go through regulation. So what's an utility token? Maybe I should explain it a little bit. So an utility token is like the authentication token. The authentication token doesn't do anything for the investments of the token generator company behind. It's just a token that allows you to authentify yourself on a two-factor authentication. So utility token, it's a token that's useful for the product. It's a utility, so it's a tool for the product, not a tool for an investment. But you can still raise money through an utility token, because imagine you build a service that's allows two-factor authentication. The token is free for everyone. You can have it for free, but every time you want to generate a token, you will have to pay something. So it still go as a utility token. And imagine that you sell in advance a lot of tokens. So I give all you guys 200,000 authentication tokens. Without the token generator being already built and designed, then I can raise money as an utility token. But it cannot be a share of the project. So it's different relation. It's more the utility token relates more to the crowdfunding, the current crowdfunding, when you sell products to people rather than send shares to people. The regulation is a critical factor. Then you have marketing, because you have to convince all this crowd, all these people. It's also similar to a crowdfunding project, but it has to target the blockchain community you are addressing. So mostly the Bitcoin community and the ERC, the Ethereum community. Because that are the people who are the potential investors, because they hold some money. If you target outside the blockchain, people will have to buy cryptos to invest in the project. So it's more complex. And then an ERC20. Who knows? I'm surprised. Who knows what an ERC20 is? Aha! Aha! You know, Stan?
Not sure.
Try. Impress us.
Actually, I read an article yesterday, but I don't remember.
So what's mean ERC?
It's a protocol of Ethereum, right?
Yes, it's about Ethereum. So it's a smart contract that define what the token is. So it's a digitalization on Ethereum for a smart contract. So it means I don't remember what the R means. E it's Ethereum, C it's for coin, and 20 it's a standard. So ERC20 it's a standard. So if you do a token, you doesn't have to do it. No. Because it's no, it's coming back. Okay. So you doesn't have to do a ERC20, but if you do a ERC20, it means it will be compatible with all exchanges. Because it's the standard token, it's compatible with all exchanges. So how much time do I have?
All the weekend.
Okay, cool. So I have some time to show you what an ERC20 is. So when you talk about contracts, smart contracts, it has to be on GitHub. So GitHub is where you put all your source code, all open project, all source code. There's no point of doing smart contract and not putting it on GitHub because that doesn't go well with what you're trying to achieve. If you want to be transparent, to be fully editable, to be sharing with the community, your code has to be transparent. It will run on all computers, and people has to challenge what you ask them to sign for. It's pretty much smart contract is in this regard pretty much like a regular contract. It's like I would be a lawyer. I will ask you to sign a contract, but I'm not going to disclose you the contract itself. I'm only disclosing you where you have to sign. Doesn't make sense. So this is the GitHub from Zeppelin, Open Zeppelin, which is a group from all the Ethereum community, which define templates for codes of smart contract. Writing a smart contract is quite tricky because if you make a bug, imagine you make a bug in your token for your ICO for your fundings. You made a bug in it that prevents you from withdrawing the money. So everyone can put the money in, but oops, I forgot to put the lock. I have a key, but I forgot to put the lock, or the lock doesn't work well. So you can't access to the money that's behind the door. So it's very important to rely on very safe, audited, well thought. Yes?
Are the smart contracts, when they're built, validated by the community of Ethereum?
So it's part of the when you do a due diligence. So it's not fully that you have too much ICO, too much smart contracts. The community can't verify everything. So the way it works is that part of your white papers, your marketing campaign, you say, this is my smart contract on the GitHub, this is my smart contract. And any investors should do the due diligence on what they're buying. So for a traditional VC, you will look at your team, you will look at what you have achieved, if you have a proof of concept, if you have I don't know, maybe already investors, how much shares you have already. Well, you will look at all the things that can make your project a success. The same should be done for ICO. Even if investors are not professional, most of the time they should do the same. And part of it's looking at the smart contracts.
So the code is available for everybody before they launch
it has to be. You're not going to sign a document that has not been made available. But it's given a long time ago before, so you have time to review it.
But I think not every ICO shares the smart contract.
They all do it. They all do it, and they all have to do it. Well, if it's an ICO, they have to do it. What differs is that many ICOs use only the random template or the basic templates of your ERC20, which I'm going to show you. So the basic template of your ERC20 is really raw, and they don't have specific tokens, and they rely on the generic one, which has been tested and improved, but they need to show it. If they don't show it, it's like signing, no one will sign a contract he has not looked at it. So just they don't communicate because that's not where they put the value.
So if the code is public, what takes someone from copying it and creating a new code, a new token exactly the same?
Well,
I mean, why couldn't they just
but
copy
there is no value in it. It's the whole concept. There is no value in your smart token. Basically, every business model that is on blockchain, fully on blockchain with no interaction with the railroad, can't make money. There is no money to be made out of it. If you were to make, for example, a very smart system on blockchain, that's it. Every time you push that, you do that function on blockchain, it giving you some ether, 1 ether. Then one smart guy in the room will say, look, I'm gonna look at the smart contract. This is address. I'm gonna put mine. I'm gonna just take his contract and put mine. So because it's on blockchain, it's available for everyone for audit, review, analysis, and everything. So you can't hide it. I'm not with this. And because you can't hide it, if you were to put something in that gives you money, everyone will be able to change it. Or a nicer guy will say, I'm just going to remove the wallets line. There's nothing to pay anymore.
But that's the power of it.
That's the power of it. But it's related to the open source community. People make money still by giving open source code. If you look at open source company, they make a lot of money because their code is audited, reviewed, analyzed, and everything. And they make even more money because it's open source. The same can go for a smart contract.
How do you make the money?
So,
I mean, what is the service that you're providing that actually makes you?
So there's two ways to make money in this case. Well, two types
like,
of ways. One way is to write, review, audit smart contract for others. So you are an IT provider for the blockchain, or can be marketing as well, business as well, related to writing smart contract. And another way is because you're an oracle. You provide a service to the blockchain space.
Okay,
so an
what
oracle.
service do you provide?
Imagine you have a smart contract that is a feature on the weather. If it's snow in Geneva, then all the users that signed your contract need to give you a lot of money.
Okay, but
imagine that who is going to give the if it's snowing?
Okay, let me rephrase it.
Maybe we can continue with the presentation later.
Yeah, I will go back because maybe yes. So if we look at this, you have something interesting. So you have a lot of features that you can implement or not on the contract, and you have in particular a token directory. So here you have different set of tokens that can be easily combined to create more advanced token. So a very simple one thing. Let me check with this one. No, that's just okay. That's the interface that describes the ERC20. So ERC20, there is a total supply. You can get the balance of someone. You can transfer it to someone else, and that's an event. So it means if you transfer it to someone else, the contract will say, "Hey, there was a transfer from that person to that person." So users can look on, can register to this event and be notified when there is a change of ownership of the token. So basically, that's the very basic definition of the ERC20. So that's not the code, that's just the definition. So the code, I think maybe you should have a basic token that contains it. Yes, so you find the same type that we had before. So you have, you don't have total supply is defined here. It should be defined ERC20. Okay, so in this one, okay, it's defined because it's inherit from the other contract. So you have the total supply that's already defined. It's not writing it because it's writing on the other that we just showed. And you have the balance. So what it says, it just store a number of token associated with the address that you have for the balance. Then you can transfer, as I say. So here you have the full code that you do for transfer. I'm not going into detail because you're all ITs. I might lose you very fast, and then you get the balance of the users. So that's really the basic definition of a token. It can be a burnable token. So I'm not going into the code, but what's a burnable token? It means that's a token which we can burn some shares. Or in the case of an ICO, someone will say, I'm burning my shares. So you reduce and you create scarcity. Another one is cap token. So there is a number of tokens limited. You can define a limitation through times. You say that in the first month you only need that amount of tokens, then later on you have more tokens. A possible token, it means that at any time you can freeze, like an IPO. The regulators can freeze it. You could say, oh, there is an issue in my ICO, I'm freezing it until I've solved the concern relating to that.
So all these functions have been defined before the ICO. Once the ICO comes out, can you modify, for example, input the burnable token if it gets approved by the committee? Who is behind the committee?
So it's not the committee who defines. So either you define how you can upgrade your smart contract. You have defined a way, like same thing in the real contract, where it's defined how the contract can be changed. Who has to sign, who has to approve for changing it. So either you've defined that into the smart contract code, which is quite tricky to define, because I think you have a while clause that allow you to do whatever you want. I might not sign your contract. There's a disbelief into what you're proposing. Another way to do it, if it's a major issue for the blockchain itself, the community can fork the blockchain. That's like a massive weapon, atomic weapon. Yes?
I have two questions. Does the smart contract work on, are they compatible with Ethereum Classic?
Completely. Mostly.
And the second thing is that Bitcoin is secure because there are months where they were unknown, and so they could actually build a lot of mining. We could mine and build a lot of transactions that kind of provides security. If you do ICO, what prevents a mining pool to completely cheat the system and do double spend?
It's really easy. You can choose, every node, everyone can choose to accept what others are doing or not. At any time, everyone is free to fork. It's not because you have a mining pool that try to cheat the system.
If you do ICO,
it
then
doesn't.
there's a mining
So
pool.
what maybe I can rephrase a little bit what happened in more detail. So most of the time, what's happened is that they can't buy your token, they can't cheat with your token. What they do is they flood, because you can only the blockchain can only process 100 transactions per second. Well, it's not. It's per second. They try to flood the blockchain with a lot of big transaction and like 0.001 Ether. So just random transaction and flood the system. So the system takes hours to recover. Like some say the ICO was only for 6 hours. They were stuck because investors have not been able to invest within the 6 hours, and the transaction came later. But they cannot be approved later because within the smart contract it said it's only 6 hours. So there was some use case that happened, and well, they understood that, and now they do it better. So they try to have more inclusive dates. So if pool miners want to cheat, they will have to float for a longer time, which will not be very viable economically.
And also minimum amounts also.
Yes, minimal amounts for us, exactly.
But for the Bitcoin, Satoshi made the first transaction, and then a couple of people. I mean, when you do ICO, you have to create, the team who's doing the ICO has to make some transaction to kind of solidify the first steps, or is the
No. It's
It's around-
automatically, they don't need to intervene. The blockchain does auto by itself.
so it's okay.
So now I'm gonna talk you a little bit of Mon Pèlerin's token. So Mon Pèlerin is one of my projects, the other being Ibani. But before I talk to you about Mon Pèlerin, I need to talk to you about Ibani. So Ibani is a currency change platform done well. It's a bit marketing, it's too much marketing. So let's compare it to a traditional business such as Revolut, TransferWise. It's community-based. It's better and simpler UX experience. It's cheaper and it's faster. Yeah. But they look at us. They're looking at us. Revolut tried to iron like a few months ago. The focus is on fiat, but the platform can integrate seamlessly with any token as well. So, sorry?
Fiat, what it is?
It's a Latin word that refers to regulated currency like Swiss franc, euro, dollar. Or, if there is some Latinist here, I might explain the origin. Okay. So it's let's say that it's a currency change platform where you can convert money. So it doesn't target traders; it targets end users. So, for example, across border, people who have to recover every month the salary. So the idea is that we provide a seamless integration and experience for the user, so it doesn't have to bother and worry too much. It gets notified, it's transparent, so it gets the rate that is being applied, and it's community based, so it's the money from the community that go through the channel rather than those from the banks, which solve all make it cheaper, faster because we don't go through the banks, and better experience as well.
So it's peer-to-peer.
It's not peer-to-peer. It's not peer-to-peer. It's community-based. So it means that
So there's a pool.
there's pool, yeah, and it's transparent, so community can see what's going on. So now, if we extend this idea of fiat experience into the blockchain, it means that you can send your money not only to IBAN, that's why we call it IBAN. You can send it through a wallet. So you can give your one IBAN to your employer that will provide to you. And whenever there is someone that's putting some money into that IBAN, it doesn't get into your bank accounts. It gets into your wallets, on-chain wallets. So we introduce the fiat payments into the blockchain realm because when it's in your wallet, it means that you can pay from one wallet to another with your Swiss franc, euro, or whatever. And it's guaranteed the financial regulatory on the blockchain. It means that if you were to provide services using our smart contract as an API, so it's like an API. It's like you were going to a bank partner, you ask him to sign some contract, blah blah. You don't have to sign anything, you just use the smart contract, and by definition, it's an agreement of use of the service. And because you can rely on that, you don't need to worry about the financial and the regulation and the blockchain. So it solves all the problem for you. So you can be just focus on what's matter. Maybe you have questions about that?
You're expecting there will be a ability to transfer them with the currencies from here? I mean,
Sorry?
You provide the ability to transfer cryptocurrencies from here, from your platform?
We can as well. So the way we're going to do it, we're not going to directly integrate with Ethers. Well, we might integrate with Ethers as like we integrate with your banks, your current, but with UBS. We integrate with UBS, we integrate with Ethereum, Bitcoin, or the Bitcoin as well. But then the money comes within the platform, and because we guarantee financial regulation, it means that the Ethers on the platform will be regulated Ethers. So it will not be live. It's on the public blockchain, but it will not be live tokens, I mean Ethers token that go everywhere. It will be token that we can control and the community can control to be sure that it doesn't go for funding terrorism or drugs dealing or whatever non-authorized activities. But the very strong power of that is that your Ethers are backed with 100% reserve. So you can withdraw anytime, there is no bank run problems. and it's fully regulated. So it means that curators can directly go to your bank accounts, to UBS bank account in Swiss franc instantly.
And for instance, I want to secure some methods I had from another platform.
You can trust us for security, and the security is on blockchain.
Yeah, which is far better than doing some.
So it's yeah. And basically, those are fiats are ERC20 with a lot of advanced power into it that challenge all the regulation aspects. So we invert also the regulation part. Most of the time in banks right now, the regulation is done at posteriori. So you try to send too much money, the banks will detect it in most of the cases, and they will say, oh, we have an issue, but your money is already sent. And then you need to find how to deal with that money. So you try to contact the customer, you try, can you explain to me what you have these amounts that we're not familiar with, and we would like to know more and everything. And it's a lot of pain, work, manual work, because you have to reconcile information, you have to accept under the risk of processing something you don't know very well. The way we do it, we revert it. So it means you can't send the money if you don't comply first with the AML KYC regulation before being able to send it. So you know that you will be accepted or not before you send the money. So we will comply with the AML KYC. So now I would like to discuss with you your projects. If we can tokenize some of your projects. We want to start. So you have interactions in your projects. You are modeling some interactions, right?
Yeah.
So because you're modeling, yes?
Just, does it have to be written in Solidity?
Right now you don't have a lot of blockchain able to process smart contracts. So you can use Solidity, there is also Serpents, but it's mostly you will run it on Ethereum. So you have other blockchains coming, they don't have the maturity of Ethereum. You can do few things, fewer things. For example, on Bitcoin, you can do the core coin, which is very trivial, but it's good enough for quite a lot of use cases. So it's like the template of an ERC20 core coin. You can have total supply, you can transfer between people, and that's most what you can do with common coin. That's many use cases, but if you want to go further, because most of the time you have some gamification, some advanced business rule and everything that you want to put into your token. So it's good enough to start, but most of the time you want to go further and embed in your smart contract more knowledge. So it's a smarter contract, it's a smarter token.
Do you mean the projects that we are doing right now here?
Yes.
Okay.
Or we can discuss of other projects later. This is a startup weekend, so it's good that if we have an idea that you want to share and discuss how we can tokenize. What will be? Doesn't mean that's what you should do. That's what I'm going to say you should do. But we can think of an idea of tokenizing. Or don't take an idea of the project if you want to experiment and try.
Can we book something with the tokens? For example, book a flight?
So token,
But,
that's about the interaction.
needs,
So you can define, yes, we could imagine booking a flight. So you will tokenize the seats of the plane, for example. You will, when there is a flight defined, you will issue the amount of tokens that define the seats. So the basic mindset is we'll say, let's say 1 token per seat. And then you see, but there's the first class. Let's say the first class, it's 2 tokens. If you want the first class will be 2 tokens. So you have the amount of token, and depending on how much token everyone has, so you need to define a token that said there is that amount of holders of the token that can have 2 tokens, that need to have 2 tokens, and that amount of holders of the token that need to have 1. You can then, as more token, you can say, but there is a middle. Maybe someone wants more expensive meals, or you have this place on the seat on the window, or the seats with the exits. So you can gamify and monetize the different seats, the different service you provide with a different amount of tokens. And then people can buy it and they can resell it between themselves. For example, oh, I don't want to take the plane anymore. I've booked the seat on the windows. Okay, I'm selling the seat on the windows. So I'm selling the seats and the windows option. So they're tied together somehow, but I could imagine a token that allows swapping another seats. So someone could buy this seat, another one would buy another seat with the window. Same for the meal. Or I buy also I took the meal options. So it doesn't mean that the one who buy the seats need to buy the meal. Someone else can buy the meal.
But the air company has to develop a service that.
So the air company has to define something like that. But it means that they provide a liquid booking system. So because you bought a seat on the primary markets, you will be able to resell some part of it on the secondary markets. Right now, if you book the meal options, you stop with it. And it will be in the interest of the company that you can give it, that will be complex to manage, but that you can give your meal, that you don't want anymore the meal, and you can give it to another passenger. Right now, there is no possibility to do it. So that's provide liquidity about services. And you can think larger, you can tokenize the plane, you can tokenize the airports, you can tokenize, and because you make it, you monetize or you modelize interaction between every person that go through a flight experience, flight journey, you can create a very liquid, very easy to manipulate and extend functionality in their interactions.
We take 2 questions and then we have to go back to work, okay? So
I was thinking about tokenizing the security checks in airports, because you always go through multiple security checks, and some people go through fewer. I've noticed it in different airports. If there was like some sort of token that says, okay, she's validated the security check, she doesn't need to go on that one or that one, that would
Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense.
because there's so much
And you will
wasted
reduce the
time.
costs for the security company that doing the security check. Much less person to do and much more. They can do more extensive security because they have less person, less. Very good case.
Just conceptually, there are more and more ICO about data, personal data, selling, machinery. Obviously, you can't store the data on the blockchain. So, what's your approach?
You never want to. It's generally like there was NoSQL a few years ago. It's the same idea. You don't want to use one database for everything. You want to have multiple databases, multiple storing system. Even if blockchain is much more than a storing system, you want to have multiple databases that's manage your system. You want a Redis for the cache. You want a MySQL for the relational part. You want maybe a MongoDB for all the statistics. With Elasticsearch, Kibana stuff, maybe. So you have different. You want to bridge different databases. On blockchain, you will do only the stuff that's need to be audited, that's needed to provide transparency. You have no value. It's cut a lot of money. If you were to write 1 megabyte on the blockchain, it will cost you $20, and it will take 1 hour and a half. Look at how much gigabyte you have in your phone and multiply by 1,000 what I just said. It gives you a cost. So you don't want to store things that has no value, has been audited and reviewed. It's like you giving YouTube to audit at KPMG. Say, audit the videos. Why do you need to audit them in the first place?
So you would just store the ownership and the permissions.
So you can. There's many layers. The more you store, the more you audit, the more the transparency, the better you are. But now you want to experiment, grow organically. Maybe at the beginning, for example, the state of Geneva put the Registry of Commerce on blockchain. The way they do it, because of the legal, all the concern and everything, they only put a hash, so a fingerprint of their database or their new ads documents. They only put a fingerprint on the blockchain. So you can't know the information by itself on the blockchain. You can just look at their website and see if they have modified something. You can just check if they have. So that's the tiniest approach, but that's the first fit if you're not certain of what you can do and you have regulatory issues. And then you can go further. You can put some documents on the blockchain. You can put even more stuff. So for files, you might not use Ethereum, you will use IPFS, and then still use a hash on your Ethereum smart contract. So IPFS is not so much for transaction, but it's very good for storing large file, large things. It's much better for that. So you can even bridge together two blockchain with different tools, features together, so you get a better, much stronger system. And depending on all ecosystem, you might pay well on using that blockchain with that other things rather than similarly for cloud service. Today we don't think of renting on Amazon. We thought of having some service on Amazon, other on Azure, Microsoft Azure, and other on other clouds. You bring together where it makes the most economic sense.
Thank you, Sarah, so much. You're going to be around this afternoon on...
Yeah.
Okay, so if you want to tokenize your project...
Max office is just there.
Yeah, just
if
there.
I'm not on the rooms, talking to you, come by and
Yeah, you ask me if you don't see Sarah around, you ask me and I'll bring you. The master. Thank you very much.
I'm applauding you guys for spending a whole weekend here watching the project.
C'est sur